Tumekuja hapa baba kutuambia tunaenda State House na sio toki mambo mengine, tunapeleka baba Ikulu 2022. Na ukiona hapa vijana wameamua ni Raila Odinga.
Tumeshikana hapa, tunaongozea pia patilita wetu Azimio ambaye pia amealikwa hapa, na tumeamua kuunga kwanza mkono, na tunasema si kama mavijana wa Gideon, tuko na Gideon, baba, na tuko hapa tuone kumpatia itakuwa
Uhuru Kenyatta alituambia sisi wa Kenya tusichague mwizi. It is not Raila who wants to be the president of the Republic of Kenya. It is Kenyans who are demanding that Baba must be the president. If Baba will tell us today, we expect Baba to tell us that he's going to provide for president.
current situation at Kasarani. We are waiting for the big day that His Excellency the Right Honorable Raila Odinga announced to us, and today is the final day that we are going to listen to what His Excellency is going to tell Kenyans the way forward. We are so happy to be here, and we are praying to God to give us peace until we finish our meeting. People are still arriving, and the arrival is anonymous. I've never seen such an arrival, and the behaviors here are also amazing. People are cooperating. Tribes are here actually. The entire Kenya is here. I've seen all the tribes in Kenya. People are here. This is not a Luo event. Neither is it only an ODM event, but this is an event for the entire Kenya. So you have missed a big thing. You have missed something which you will always sit to admire that you would have attended. So we are still here celebrating with our friends, and I believe that everything is going to be fine. By the end of the day, we are going to get the message of His Excellency, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. Keep watching and share so that many people can be live at Kasarani. Thank you so much, and God bless. Kondo. Very interesting. Thanks for that. from Migori, Kisumu, all over Kenya, Umabei. I'm here to conclude my video because I think I'm running out of power. My phone is just 32% and my power bank, I think it's around 7.
wa Ukambani hapa, tukaketi chini tukasema hatutaki kurudishwa kwa vyama vya kikabila na dini na kijiji. Tunataka kutengeneza chama ambayo inaunganisha Wakenya wote, ambayo iko na uwezo wa kuunda serikali, ambayo iko na uwezo wa kutengeneza
negotiator, and that he is the guy, given his capacity in transforming businesses that were in bankruptcy, to lift up the economy. And what happened? The nation ran with him. So this is a very important event which must be choreographed to demonstrate what the presidential aspirant not just stands for, but from a standpoint of what is it that is a gap that the country is facing now? What is it that needs to be done? And then it is upon the presidential aspirant to then demonstrate, or rather to tell the Kenyans that, look, I am the person who has the solution to solve this particular problem. So that is what is the essence of a presidential declaration, in as much as it's just a single day, but it's something that is choreographed in such a way as to then rally the country around this particular person as we approach the election. So I expect Raila Odinga to play this along those lines.
And 60,000 people are expected to have been invited to this stadium, as you can see from your screen. People continue to stream in into the Kasarani stadium ahead of that announcement. But obviously you would expect a spillover. That means then probably there will be more than 60,000 people inside that stadium and outside the stadium. And you can see there are also people there who are doing businesses. That is inside the stadium now. And as you can see, jubilant supporters of the ODM leader already in the stadium. We expect that before 1 p.m. The speeches will have begun, and probably the former Prime Minister will have spoken. But just in a bit, let's focus on Raila Odinga, the man, Professor Wajakoya. Looking at, Raila Odinga from birth in the year 1945 to who he is today in the year 2021, what does it speak about the person of Raila Amolo Odinga?
I will speak on my personal experience with Raila. When we used to give him security in London, when I was in exile. And I would also like to go a footnote higher and also comment about his father, who is the creator of the mindset, like me personally, who believe in Odinga himself because of what he was as a man, what he stood for, and a man who could not take any kind of inconsistencies, a man who could not even face corruption. He even opted to resign to stand as a man, and that's what men are. Not unlike what we have in this system today, where somebody has flouted the system and instead of just resigning and going out like Murumbi, they are there, they say, I'm not going to resign. Now, Raila as a person, my experience with Raila as a person goes back into many years when I was in the police service, both in uniform and in intelligence. I know this person very well. He may not know that I know him. That's number one. Number two, I also have practically stayed closer to him in London when we were now both on the other side of the coin. And he is a man who is very down to earth. Like his father, Raila is a traditionalist. He has the Luo culture in him, whereby this era of modernization, of logic of modernization, of behaving like white person, what have you, Raila is not there. But however, he's surrounded by people who have let him down. He's surrounded by people who are actually milking him, people who are like ticks, who may not give room to others too. That's what informs you as to why some of us had to form political parties. We tried to join the ODM, but those around Raila pushed us aside. Raila cannot see that deficit. He's carrying a baggage around him that will drive voters away.
And we'll talk about that in a bit. And I think the picture is on the screen. He's the Kotu Secretary General Francis Atwoli making his way into the Kasarani Stadium, a key proponent of Raila Odinga presidency and the BBI. The president said the other day, what didn't happen will happen, and we'll talk about that in a bit, but that is Francis Atwoli. But the person of Raila Odinga, Wakili Ken Amondi, looking into his political life particularly, what does it say?
I think the person of Raila Odinga, as Prof has correctly put it, you see, an individual that from the word go has stood out and has been consistent in, amongst others, standing for reforms. He is the embodiment of change in Kenya. I think it goes without question that this was one of the key proponents of the multi-party system of government. Of course, after that, he was also a key proponent in terms of the fight for constitutional change, which ultimately, accrued when we had the 2010 constitution, which brought quite a number of radical changes, principle of which is devolution, and of course the anchoring of the human rights within our constitution as it stands, and which is acclaimed worldwide as one of the most progressive constitutions in the world. So that if you look at Raila Odinga along that line, then you see an individual that has stood for and that represents where the country ought to be, as it were. And I'm saying this in the context of, where we are right now as a country, where we really need to appreciate it, because that is a fact that we are in a system where, a time when systems ordinarily don't work. We are in a time or a generation where, even including those that you may call lieutenants of the former Prime Minister, and to that extent I would agree with Professor, even where they run governments or they have opportunity in government, they would really not manifest that which Raila Odinga has stood for generation and generation. So that then, I would say without any shadow of doubt that Raila Odinga, as it were, represents what, or rather how the country should be. He represents the values that we ought to stand for, the values that I can say represent or were moved, that motivated the founding fathers of the nation. I think that's where I can place Raila Odinga. As to if those have actually been achieved in the ground, other than from the aspect of the constitutional change, then the question that Prof talks of comes in the sense that for example, Raila Odinga does not run county governments because he is the governor. Raila Odinga may not necessarily be in particular governmental organs, so that these principles can be anchored and realized within our system. So that would be the that's the point of departure.
All right.
Yes.
Prof, when I was talking about the Kotu Bogs, Francis Atwoli, and his support for BBI, you were shaking your head. I don't know whether you disagree with Atwoli or the BBI.
Well, Atwoli is Atwoli, and he's one of the people who have come to self-impose himself on the Luhya community. He's a very, very greedy person in terms of him being very self-centered. He either goes his way or he does not go his way. He believes that is a small God who is self-claimed in the Luhya community. He doesn't even want to find out whether we have other Luhyas like myself who could be very useful in this country. He goes for people who will sing his music, and if you don't sing his music, it's fine. Now, for example, a lot of people are going to run away from Raila, especially because of the remarks this man makes. When he goes to Kakamega, as he's going, thinking that he's the spokesperson of Western Province, going to bus in thousands of people without telling us where he has got the funds from, that itself is a reflective of bad leadership. It's a reflective of imposition of leadership on the people. Raila does not need Atwoli. I don't know whether, my friend, you agree. Raila has built himself to be what he is. Those who have taken advantage of him and want to follow him so that they can actually come up to tell the world that I am the one who made Raila, they are just mistaken. I do not say that I have personal differences with Atwoli, but Atwoli is not inclusive. And that's why some of us are waiting for him to do his Kakamega concert. I call it a concert. And then when I launch my Roots Party, I'll go and launch and then tell the people of Western on what how I disagree with some of these politics that are rotten politics.
Right.
Raila is a man who has done what he has done, and that's why the world stands for him wherever he goes. And even our own president had to recognize that the country was going in the drains. The president recognized that very quickly, and he called Raila and he said, you know what, let us put this country to the right path. And that's what has been, that's the peace that we have been enjoying from the time when they had a handshake. Otherwise, the looting and the stealing in this country was just going too far, and we thank God that Raila came in to stop that corruption.
There's something you said, quite interesting. The Prime Minister has a very good record, but surrounded by people who betray him. If you can elucidate a bit on what you mean by people who betray him.
There are those people who will elbow you before you reach Raila. Raila has got massive following, but some of those people who follow Raila do not know Raila apart from seeing him on TV. Those people who have surrounded him have kept Raila away from going to shake hands with these people in the streets, going to eat with them in their houses, going to schools to visit kids, going to hospitals to visit patients, going to where workers are and putting on a helmet and working just like what Samora Machel used to do, working just like what Magufuli was doing. Raila is shielded as a king. And then there is this cult of some people now going to kneel before him. And he accepts that. That's where he goes wrong. Recently, in a by-election in Kibera, we saw a grown-up man, a married man, a full grown-up person who had the capacity to be himself going to kneel in front of Raila. Those kneeling kind of politics is what drives people like us away from him. Because unless you kneel, like me recently, I was told to take a bahasha to Baba. And then I was also told that Baba's bahasha is different from the one you'll take to Mama.
Who told you that?
Well, I'm privileged not to disclose that information. Then I'm like, but I've stayed with Raila in London, he knows me. Why are you telling me to go? Because they also want me to go and kneel. I will not kneel.
But it is not Raila Odinga who asked you.
No, it's not. Those are people who are lying. Raila may not even know. These are brokers down there who are using Raila's name, and that's what drives away people.
Wakili Mondi, there's that allegation made, and Professor Ajaka is not the only person who is making it, about people who become watchmen or gatekeepers when it comes to accessing the ODM leader, Raila Odinga.
I think that is one of the challenges that leaders of some stature, for example, the Prime Minister, may just, have to experience. I mean, even my good friend that I've just met here, or Prof, I mean, if one day, one time, he rises to that level, chances are, and you have the whole country, an issue of the country affecting you, and you have to deal with, so that then you have to delegate a lot of things to so many other people. And some of these characters who, for all intents and purposes, may not have been part and parcel of your struggle, may then be the ones who, come up with this sort of shady things that he's talking about. And of course, such have also been said in respect of the former Prime Minister, though personally I haven't experienced any such. I mean, my interactions even at the home have always been such that, you go to the elder statesman, you hear the advice from him. The much that has come out is that instead, rather than the bahasha people keep talking of, instead you take the breakfast and whatever and the advice. I mean, that is my experience with Raila Odinga. However, I tend to think that along those lines, I would comment in terms of the fellas who purport and are actually known to be core diehards and who stood with Raila for long, and who also happen to now have opportunity to lead, particularly by virtue of the reforms that Raila fought for and brought, so that now, remember, we have devolution, such that we have governments which are controlled even by ODM, and these are basically Raila's lieutenants. So that one would ordinarily expect that these would be the persons that would perpetuate the Raila philosophy. One would expect that these counties would manifest what Raila stands for, so that when Raila now declares his candidature, I mean, selling him ought to be easy. He should simply be saying that, look, if you go to county this, being given 10 billion per year. This is what they've done in terms of our manifesto. This is what county this has done. Look at how they have transformed, such that, can you imagine having me handling the 6-7 trillion Kenyan budget? This is what I would do. I think to that extent, these characters may have let down the professor, especially in situation where corruption would be the order of the day in those counties, in a scenario where, you know, failure to just comply with the basic rule of law in terms of how to do things right, which is what the former prime minister has all along stood for throughout his life. So that I would say that it is to that extent that these characters have actually interfered with what the former prime minister actually stands for, to the extent that we now have a scenario where the deputy president can be said to have massive hold, you know, in the country. You know, one would have to ask him or herself, why is that so? I mean, it is basically because what the other team stands for is what you would find most of the Raila lieutenants in the counties, you know, doing more or less the same, so that the person down there in the ground would not see so much of a difference. So I think that is the major challenge that Raila really has. Right. He stands for something, we all know what he stands for, but then most probably the guys that he has entrusted and who have a responsibility do not so much really manifest this based on the positions that they have.
Professor Jakoya, in the political life of the former Prime Minister, would you say you've picked an element of inconsistency? For example, the KANU NDP merger that led to, you know, the former Prime Minister coming into government. There are also those people out there who think even the handshake itself, although the president has, you know, really mentioned the importance of the handshake, there are those who feel it was a part of inconsistency on his part.
Well, I would say yes, and I would also say no. Okay. I would say yes because the prime minister wanted really to be in the government because he was feeling being left out, and that's why now he's one of the government projects. Right now, Raila is riding on the government, vehicles, police, and everything. Even Uhuru Park and what have you, yes, Raila is part of the government project, and the handshake led to that. That is a fact. Whoever wants to hang me can hang me when I leave the studio. But on the other side, yes, that handshake actually came with a meaning. People were crying. People did not know where to go. The monies were being looted. The Aror Kimorel, I don't know if I pronounce Kimorel Dam, the looting of maize, the maize scandals in Rift Valley, the bloating of the cabinet by people from two ethnic communities. I mean, the whole world was just going into disarray. The appointment in government was solely pegged on which tribe you came from, which community you came from, and how loyal you were. And that's why there was government mismanagement. So Raila's coming in and shaking Uhuru's hand was actually a litmus test that stopped that ego. And from that time up to now, we have not had big corruption scandals. He also stopped this preeminence of people going to use government projects as their own personal projects. People opening roads that were not there. People going to Canaan when they were in Jerusalem. So all that actually came up with a mixed feeling. And at least there was sanity and peace. And there have been peace since that particular time. The business has opened up. People have been booming. If you go to Ngara right now, or from that particular time, you see a cross-section of people walking up and down. And when people are walking, that means they are busy. That means they are doing something to enhance their livelihood. But previously, the country was coming to a standstill. The thief was just stealing, whoever it was, God knows, and Kenyans know. School kids were being thrown out, their playgrounds being stolen, the river Nairobi and what have you, land was just being grabbed everywhere. You go to Kiambu County, it was just in a mess. Somebody stealing, literally. You go to some of the counties in some parts that I'm not going to mention, but I will mention if you allow me. Things were just like, but Raila's coming up actually quietened the situation, and the world came up, and the stock markets rised. The international community brought in aid, though people may not know. pegged on what the president had done to sanitize peace by bringing in the opposition. And that was the foundation of the problems we have today, because some people wanted just to be president. I have to be president no matter what. If Raila and Uhuru can shake hands, why are they shaking hands? It's me who was supposed to. Come on. The country was going down in the gallows. Thank you.
All right. Wakili Amonde, comment a bit on, you know, that aspect of the allegation of inconsistency.
I think in respect of 2018, looking at it from an, let me start from an academic perspective. You can say that in the sense that ordinarily one would expect an opposition leader to just stick to the opposition. That is from an academic perspective of doing things. But I mean, we are living in a practical world. What we face and the situation in the country in post-2017 election was practical, and we know what it was. We know what happened. Things were not moving. I mean, there was no business that was going on, so that it would therefore seem, and I can confidently say that the handshake between the president and the former prime minister was justified. Of course, we also, the consequences of the same, Prof has just spoken of, you know, how the culture of looting just came to an end. I mean, we lived in a country which was being raped and looted, right, left, and center.
But KEMSA scandal has happened.
Of course, there's the aspect of KEMSA in between. But Prof used a word that if you look at the extent of corruption post handshake, I mean, it's so much reduced. Yeah? So if you also look at the level of government project implementation, so that we don't have this story of, you know, launching of fake projects. Things are actually moving throughout the country. Look at the expressway, yeah? Look at, for example, if you go to the other part of the world, Western Kenya, the ports, and look at the Lamu port thing. I mean, there's so much that has happened in between. Of course, there's also the question of national unity. The fact that previously there's a sense in which a significant number of Kenyans felt locked out of the, you know, national government. And you can't live in that sort of a society where 40 tribes feel probably only 2 are in a government. So that after the handshake, there's a sense in which there was an element, a feeling of inclusivity, which is really key even towards economic development. Because once a significant mass of the country feel detached, then we cannot have economic development and prosperity. So that I would say that it would seem that even when Raila has gone against the norms in terms of cooperating with the government system, when he is actually the opposition leader, if you look at it from the perspective of the end justifying the means, then it would seem that he was justified. I think he will be vindicated by history to that extent.
All right.
Yeah.
And you can see live pictures from Kasarani, the exuberance and the excitement by the supporters of ODM leader Raila Odinga carrying banners there. That's that's right in the center of that stadium. And clearly this looks like Professor Wajakoya. The supporters of ODM leader Raila Odinga appear to believe that this is the most realistic shot ever the former Prime Minister has ever had in his running for presidency.
I don't say supporters of Raila that this is the first time they are thinking like this. Raila's diehard supporters are diehard supporters right from the time when they started supporting Raila. So even if they are going in that one, that crowd you see is a crowd that has gone in from with their heart, not burst in. Those who have been burst in probably are those delegates who have come from elsewhere. But if you go in the streets of Nairobi and you go even to the estates, you'll find that there are some people who are born to support Raila, even if they have not met him in person. And that's what democracy is, not autocracy. Most of Raila's rallies, people sleep praying to wake up to go voluntarily without being burst in. But if you look at the opposite, which I'm not going to mention, of course it's obvious, people get burst in. And before I answer your question, well, we shall meet because that's my home ground to test my popularity. But I will not want to say anything because this the Prime Minister has got people who believe in him. I did believe in him, but I'm now running with him to tell him that, look, this thing is not born for you forever. These are the mistakes you have made. If you accept, let us correct them, but you correct them politically.
Professor Wajakoya is running for president?
Yes, I'm running.
All right. We have a presidential candidate on set also. Quite an interesting one. But Ken,
yes,
you know, analyzing this fifth stab of the former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, there are those who believe this is the most realistic shot the former Premier has had in his, you know, entire career of running for presidency.
Yeah, I think you have to look at Raila Odinga, particularly his contest of the presidency from 2007. Yeah, I think was he first contested in 1997. But it is from 2007 when, you know, he made what can be described as, you know, serious stabs at the presidency. And you realize that, for example, in 2007, you know, there's still that contention. You ask the Raila supporters will tell you he won that one clear. Of course, it ended in contention and a stalemate, and that's how he became the Prime Minister. Come to 2013, and of course, there was also the question of the legitimacy in terms of the elections. There's a sense in which it was felt that there's a way in which it's called what? The electronic fashion of transmission of votes, which was tested for the first time in 2013, was manipulated to, you know, deny him victory. That's a sense that is held by so many of Raila's supporters. Of course, come to 2017, still under the same banner of the electronic mode of transmission of votes, you are aware that the Supreme Court nullified the presidential election results, and it was confirmed officially that, you know, the same did not meet the threshold espoused by the law. So that, given that history, you therefore find a person whose supporters have all along held the view that there's a sense in which this gentleman has been winning, and in one way or another he was denied victory. And of course, the blame was all along placed at the feet of, you know, some entity which has come to be described as, you know, by Kenyans as the deep state. Now, given the handshake between the former Prime Minister and the President, who seems to, you know, is now convinced that the best person that would move the country forward in terms of the legacy and the sound foundation that was laid by President Mwai Kibaki, then ultimately, you know, grounded by President Uhuru Kenyatta, save for the cases of corruption, that President Uhuru Kenyatta and his team feel that this is the person that would then drive the nation ahead. I think that then gives a lot of boost to this gentleman who has demonstrated over the years that, look, he has had that solid support from the ground. So that if, in addition to that, the fellas that, you know, hold the levers of state power would also see sense in his vision, then I tend to think that therefore forms the basis of the thought that this would be, you know, the most realistic and, you know, best shot at the presidency insofar as Raila Odinga is concerned.
All right, and as you can see the pictures live from Thika Road, just somewhere near the Kasarani Stadium, and clearly Kenyans are going to be inconvenienced a bit though, because you can see some snarl up on Thika Road, but then again, there's the price to pay for this announcement. The other lanes appear to be moving, but the ones moving towards Kasarani appears that's where there's a bit of a snarl up, and you can see also how things are inside the stadium and now the roads. That's the situation on Thika Road. So if you're going to use Thika Road today and you're now headed to Kasarani for the Azimio la Umoja convention, obviously you will be inconvenienced a bit, but that's just for a few hours and after the former Prime Minister has made that announcement, the roads were clear. And there's a graduation, I think so, for Mount Kenya University. So the road is going to be a mess today. If you can avoid it, just avoid it. Professor Wajakoya, let's talk about government's involvement in the Azimio la Umoja and things as they are today, as you see them in Kasarani. You can't fail to see the presence of government in terms of supporting the former premier in his announcement today.
That's why the president has gone wrong. And the president will remain in history. President Uhuru Kenyatta will remain in history as the first president in this world to support a candidate, use government machinery, use government security, and so forth and so forth. We are yet to announce our presidential candidates, though some of us are looking at it, and more presidential candidates will come the way. The president would have done us justice if he treated all of us in the same way. And now, if Ruto was being supported by Uhuru, for example, what would Raila supporters be saying? That is also something that people have to tread very carefully. Let us not celebrate what we don't know yet. Because some of us have not started. And even if it's the masses in Uhuru Park, let them be there. If I go to to Kasarani tomorrow, definitely I will also have my own mass. You have seen history repeating itself in Uhuru Park. Kalonzo goes in today, the whole place is full. The same people just change uniform and what have you. So that's not really a big deal to me. But what I want to say is that the government itself has given itself a stab by giving preferential treatment to one candidate over the rest of the candidate. And on this one, it might have its own ramification, and Raila might lose elections on that.
Quite interesting, and we'll talk about that government support in terms of the outcome of the election. But Wakili Amondi, government's involvement, obviously the presence, even in the Mount Kenya Foundation meeting, I think we saw a number of cabinet secretaries and PSs in that meeting. And you can't help but see government aiding this meeting today, albeit silently.
I can say that, and I think I mentioned it a little bit in the last time when you asked me a question, that the country, if you look at it keenly after 2017, and Prof captured the mood well when he talked of the looting spree, where the country was just going haywire. It means we are at a momentous moment as a country. And I want to believe that for the president, it's therefore more about protection of legacy. I mean, if I was in President Uhuru Kenyatta's shoes, I think I would somehow think along the same lines. And it's not strange. We all remember when President Barack Obama's term was ending. And I mean, he took there's that distinction of him as being the American president that went all out to campaign for Hillary. You know, that was anti-American presidential system way of doing things. And why was President Obama doing that? I mean, given the rhetoric that he saw in Donald Trump, he knew if we have this guy there, we will lose direction as a country. Of course, majority of Americans thought otherwise. They voted for Donald Trump. But what happened? We saw the result.
Isn't that what Professor is alluding then, that the support of an incumbent could actually be costly to the candidate running? Do you have a perfect example in Clinton and President Obama?
Not necessarily. It could, but it could also not. And particularly when you're dealing with the candidate Raila Odinga, you are talking of someone who already has that base. You are talking of someone who, you know, like in 2017, as was manifested in the election, more or less controlled like half of the country. So that Raila would not ordinarily qualify as someone's project. But if you look at it in terms of the big picture, given the crossroads in which we are finding ourselves as a nation, given the fact that we have there's a legacy that has to be protected, and there's a sense in which some mindset must just be, you know, removed from the country. You know, there's a culture that there is a risk of the country being led in the hands of persons that would make, looting be the order of the day, shortcuts be the order of the day. I mean, it's all about our future as a nation. It's about the heart of the nation. I recall the other day, Cabinet Minister Omunya saying it, and one of the reasons why I like him, my former lecturer Omunya, is that, he speaks from his heart and he brings it out clearly. The fact that, the country cannot be run on certain pedestrian economic, theories and clarion calls. Then you gravitate, take advantage of, the fact that the economy is bad, and then, our economic situation is complex, so that we need a sound way of handling some of these things. So that, looking at it from that perspective, I think the president, given the fact that he is keen about his legacy and where he is reached, and knowing the deputy president more than any other person, because I think if there's one person who has got the data about us, it is him who is in the office of the president. There must be good reason why he deliberately ensured that in one way or another, the system of governance, in as much as he ought to be neutral, is directed towards a particular line. And I want to believe that he would have done it to any other candidate, even my good friend Prof, had it been that from their estimation of intelligence in terms of strength of candidature of the individual candidates, if the information was such that probably Prof has got so much weight, then I think the president would have done the same towards his direction, just to ensure that the country does not run into the drains. Because remember, we are dealing with a scenario where the country has been looted. We have individuals that have a lot of money, and because of the economic scenario in the ground, it is so easy to mislead these characters, and you find a not deserving individual taking over the presidency.
Prof, you hold the thought that the support of government for the candidature of the former premier could actually be costly for his ambitions.
It could be, and let me put it this way. The former premier is now officially the de facto leader, because he represents Uhuru in almost everything. Nothing wrong with that. But at the same time also, if you look at Ruto is also using government machinery and abusing it. And if you compare the two, in my opinion, of course, I cannot compare Raila to Ruto. Raila has not stolen that much openly, like what
he
this
has
other
stolen,
part.
but not that much.
Yes, of course, definitely. Corruption is both sides. There's nothing I can. Yes, but what I want to say now is, the government, where the government supports an incumbent, statistics and scientific research has shown that the incumbent will always fail unless rigged.
Okay.
We shall start with what happened with Moi when he put Uhuru as a project. That project failed. When now the issue of Uhuru Kenyatta came up, the TNA and URP coming together, or let me say when Kibaki now brought in the issue of Uhuru as a project, definitely Raila won with the landslide, and the election was rigged, and the courts were so much ashamed that they said this is whatever. But let's not go into that need. How do you expect other presidential candidates like myself and those yet to announce to compete in this kind of field, where other presidential candidates are given everything they want?
The ground is uneven.
Is uneven.
All right.
That is also rigging, and that is what the president is doing wrong. Actually, he should be charged in a court of law for violating the election, the Elections Act.
Right.
And also, Raila and Ruto should also be charged because they are violating the elections. The presidential elections has not yet been announced, and they started campaigning very early, taking advantage of the government supporting them, one directly and one indirectly. That is not what actually. And Raila did not need the government to support him for this. Raila himself would win the election without even the government support. Well, if they are supporting him to actually actualize what they did to him in 2007, it's okay. What do you think? But however, what I'm trying to say here is that it is Raila's day, and it's a competition, and this capping of the Electoral Commission coming up and saying and regulating the conduct of fundraising, while they know that the government is not actually telling the Electoral Commission how much money it is spending on the candidates directly or indirectly, that in itself is also unjust. Right. Therefore, what I'm trying to say here is that there are 40% of undecided voters, 40% of undecided voters who will not vote for the status quo, and trust me, don't just look at me, I'm not here to grant it myself, but I might get a lot of
You actually
votes.
could be the beneficiary of the 40% undecided voters.
Yes.
And we're live on YouTube as well as on Facebook. Our platforms, online platforms are live. You can watch from there as well as on your set. And thank you very much for the comments coming in. And we'll be sampling some of them, so keep them coming, particularly on our YouTube live stream. Wakili Amondi, the elder brother to Raila Odinga, Dr. Uhuru Odinga, said something very interesting. Now, this time round, we are going to win this election because we have system on our side. We have deep state on our side, and you alluded to that. I asked the former Prime Minister that question directly, I think about a month ago, and his response to me was, he is not a government project, and Dr. Uhuru was jesting in his usual manner. How does Raila Odinga, or how will he be able to delink himself from the tag of a government project?
I think the statement by Dr. Uhuru, like the Prime Minister said, was more or less, I think it was more or less made in jest, given the history. In fact, for those who know Dr. Uhuru in person, I mean, he's an old man who is a storyteller. I mean, who you really enjoy being around, such that when he says some of those things, in as much as at times others may take them seriously, but if you know him in person, then you'll understand what I'm talking about. However, for Raila Odinga, I do not think Raila really needs, what is called a system for him to win elections. Raila has the history. There's what he stands for. There's what he personifies. And in fact, if you look at where we are today as a country, and I think I had alluded to it earlier, the fact that we have reached a scenario, or rather as a country, we are in a state where not just to the political class and certain individuals that have been associated with corruption, but a significant mass of Kenyans have taken this to be the normal order of the day. You understand? So that for this to be reversed, then we really need someone who has stood consistently and even has suffered, sacrificed and actually suffered for these particular ideals, so as to bring the country back to order. Good, I mean, the fact is, throughout the country, this is something for which Raila Odinga has been appreciated for. So that if Kenyans really want change, if Kenyans are saying that we are tired of, the corruption that we have seen, if Kenyans are saying that we need consistency, even in terms of, actualizing the reform processes that we have had over all the years, if Kenyans are saying that we want real change in terms of economic development and want the person who has manifested this when he was in government, you realize that Raila Odinga comes out as the perfect answer insofar as this is concerned. So that I really do not think that Raila fits the tag of a project. Raila Odinga don't think can be a project. It's only that it would be an added advantage for Raila Odinga to have the support of a sitting president. And suffice to add, I want to believe there is nobody, there is no candidate who does not wish to have the support of the sitting president. The deputy president hoped for that. All the other candidates, in fact, let me tell you, if today President Uhuru Kenyatta, or rather his system, can, point at our
Professor
colleague here as the person that they feel will best. I mean, he would not be the person that we're talking of today. From tomorrow, we'll all be discussing him and asking ourselves, So there's a sense in which it boosts, the campaign, not necessarily in terms of giving you the vote, but it boosts in fact, I differ with the people at times, when you give the example of Uhuru Kenyatta in 2002, that he lost because he was a project of the late President Moi. My position has all along been that were it not for the Kibaki Tosha clarion call, Uhuru Kenyatta would have been the president of Kenya at, was it 40 or 41 years old? Yes, he would have made it. Yeah, so let us not always take, how this notion that the mere fact that you have got the support of a sitting president, then that would mean that your presidential bid will flop. It depends on so many other factors.
All right.
Yeah.
And clearly you can see from the pictures you were seeing earlier, the likes of Milio Diabo Gesta leading other ladies there in dance and song as the stadium continues to fill ahead of that announcement. And in a bit we'll also be linking up with Brian Kimani to give us a little bit of the history and the profile of the former Premier Raila Odinga. But Professor Ajakoya, it is easy to say Dr. Uhuru was speaking in jest when he said the state is on our side, so we will win this election.
Actually, Mr. Mondi, Council, Dr. Uhuru was not speaking in vain. He was speaking what he knew was right, and that's what we are seeing. The fact that he's a joker, I mean, that kind of joke is a very reckless joke, if at all it's a joke. He meant it, and he was bragging about it, and these are the people who are putting Raila down. If I was Raila, I would have told my brother, come on, get to the back and sit there. I could have told Junet Mohammed, get to the back and sit there. I could have told James Orengo, you guys go back and sit where you were supposed to. And that's how Uhuru Kenyatta was able to manage KANU by coming out of KANU and going into TNA and leaving those old skins in KANU so that he could actually revamp himself as the new Uhuru, who associated himself with the young and the youth, and that went well. But Raila's problem is, and I will tell him when I meet him, because I don't fear nobody apart from God, is he's surrounded by scrounges, people who have let him down, and that's why people like us are running for election to correct that kind of face. And Uhuru Odinga is one of the people who might cost Raila Odinga elections.
Wakili Amondi, I think also speaking in jest, appeared to suggest that if you were endorsed yourself by President Uhuru Kenyatta, your profile would
but your credibility will be dented and your integrity will be dented, and that's why I need to do what I have to do, to go and speak to the people directly like I'm speaking to you, and that's what I'm doing.
Okay, speaking directly to the people. Let's talk a little bit about the One Kenya Alliance, Wakili Amondi. I think we have seen Musalia Mudavadi will be an no-show at the Kasarani Stadium. So will Moses Wetangula. So is Kalonzo Musyoka. Probably the only person who has not spoken in the One Kenya Alliance, whether he will be in or not, is the senator for Baringo, Gideon Moi. Is it significant? Is it significant, the no-show by the One Kenya Alliance, who so many people tout as probably the magic that would hand Raila Odinga this presidency?
Of course, it's a cause for concern. I mean, it's not for nothing, for example, that of course we were learning that from the media, and I want to believe that media stations cannot be reckless. But the president felt that it is important that the NASA team, as they were, speak with one voice and come together. I think it would be the interest of so many of us, and even myself, that there's a way in which Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi would, coalesce around Raila Odinga as they did in 2017. And that is more so because of the surety in terms of the numbers that the team would galvanize. Remember that going to 2022, the person that they are contesting against is a grassroots man. You are talking of someone who is also relatively young and has energy and also has the resources which he is ready to spend. In fact, you can rest assured that after the Azimio la Umoja team, that is the function of today, probably tomorrow, 2 days thereafter, he'll have massive rallies around Githurai, around that area, just so as to restore the support that. So that is a person that you are dealing with. So you can never take chances when you're dealing with that sort of a person. You can never act on assumptions when dealing with that sort of a person. You cannot just proceed on the basis that, we have, I don't know, the deep state and whatever. Every vote counts. Yeah, you cannot just assume that, like I said, that, remember I started by saying that Raila Odinga cannot be a project because he's always had the numbers. In the last election, he had around half of the country. But that half of the country was because of the support of the likes of Kalonzo Musyoka, the likes of Mudavadi. Yeah, so that I think that is something that the ODM leader and his team will then really need to work on. I think what is fundamentally important is that if you look at it in terms of ideology, in as much as there may have been reasons that occasioned the split as it is now, and legitimate, of course they are legitimate because people make mistakes, and ODM may have made certain mistakes. For example, when it came to the sharing of the political parties, funds, how the process was handled, so that the other fellas felt, they were not operating in good faith. I think that is something that really needs to be addressed. But what is more important that I was saying is that if you look at the basis of these NASA principles, if you look at Mudavadi's base, as well as Kalonzo Musyoka's base, and you ask the base, forget about the principles, whom would you go for? Would you go for the deputy president, or would you go for the former prime minister? I'm sure their bases would very easily gravitate around the former prime minister.
All right.
Yes.
Professor Wajakoya, the former vice president and the ANC party leader Musalia Mudavadi said he's engaged in his personal business. So we'll make it. So is Moses Wetangula. Kalonzo Musyoka, I think, is in Juba. He's monitoring, of course, the implementation of a peace process. Is it significant that these three who have been part and parcel of a NASA coalition, the defunct NASA coalition, is it significant that they will not be in Kasarani?
Really, Raila doesn't need them. I also don't need them. They have been there for a very long time. And you can also see from their mode of operation. When Mudavadi was campaigning, he only goes for the roadside shows, or going to sign us a book in a governor's office in Nyeri or Nyandarua or Laikipia. That is not campaigning. And that's why they are giving Ruto a leverage to campaign. Real campaign needs real men campaigning to real people. So when it comes to them now wearing suits and driving around and going to State House to take a picture with the president, will that translate into votes? Raila does not need them.
Raila doesn't need them. But we could also see betrayal in the city today. Wakili Ken Amonde. Because these three principles deliberately, because they appear to say they have personal business, but it appears like a deliberate skip of the Azimio la Umoja convention. But we have seen time and time again the Baringo Senate appearing to pull towards Raila Odinga. If he shows up today in Kasarani, wouldn't that be the beginning of the end of the One Kenya Alliance?
Yeah, you see, one thing I know about the One Kenya Alliance is that in the end of the day, they will gravitate around one of the major presidential aspirants. And this will come especially because of the pressure that they will get from the ground. Yeah, the way this country ordinarily operates, notwithstanding the fact that we have a constitution that asks dispersal of power and the county's devolution, but there's a sense in which people still believe that, central government is everything. That is the notion down there. So that heading towards 2022, January, February, thereabouts, I expect a lot of pressure to come from, the base of these particular politicians and insisting that they have to be in either of the, the main divides that will be most likely to, win the presidential race. But of course, I expect Gideon to be at the function today, and of course for good reason, given the history with his friend, the president, those family affiliations. Gideon, I expect to be at the function.
All right. And we'll see whether Gideon Moi will make it to Kasarani today. And we'll continue with that analysis, particularly in the One Kenya Alliance and what it portends for them, the meeting today. But for now, I want us to head straight to Mombasa. Like I told you, we're live from several locations. We're live in Kisumu, we're live in Mombasa, we're live in Kasarani, both in and out, and we're live in studio now. Thomas Madiga joins us from Mombasa. Thomas, if you could kindly update us on, the mood in Mombasa ahead of this declaration.
Well, good morning to you, Jacob Kioria at Broadcasting House in Nairobi. We are live from Mombasa County. I'm just in the streets of Mombasa. Just behind me, the usual logo which tells that we're in Mombasa, the Elephant Tusk. And as it is today, is the D-Day for the ODM party, as the presidential hopeful Raila Odinga will be launching his presidential bid during the Azimio la Umoja convention in Kasarani. And in Mombasa, it is all systems go. And about yesterday, we had been talking to grassroots leaders here in Mombasa, and they say they are all prepared to join Raila Odinga in the Azimio la Umoja convention in Nairobi. And as yesterday, several buses had left Mombasa to Nairobi, and we had leaders even from the grassroots level, those aspiring for the MCA seats, of course, taking several youths and people to Nairobi, sponsoring them to Nairobi, so that they'll be joining the convention, of which 60,000 people are expected to be attending the Azimio la Umoja convention. Of course, to ODM people, it is a big day to them, of course, as they expect Raila Odinga to launch his presidential bid for the next year general elections in Nairobi. And of course, here in Mombasa, what they're saying is they're expecting they're expecting good things, of course, from the Azimio la Umoja convention, of which they want their interests to be taken to be taken into account. Of course, employment to the youth, and of course ensuring that there is economical empowerment. And as Raila himself says that there will be, of course, there will be no progress in terms of economy and in terms of making sure that the country gets development, just because if there is no political stability, or there will be no, or they'll not realize economic development if there is chaos amidst all things as they are moving forward to ensure that all goes well for the country. But here in Mombasa, they're expecting much good things to be okay. And of course, in Swahili they'll say kwamba Mombasa tunatarajia kwamba mambo yawe mazuri zaidi, and they say that tunatarajia kwamba Raila Odinga wakati katika convention hii kule jijini Nairobi kuweza kuangazia yale ambayo anapanga wakati atakapotangaza azimio lake la kuwa rais katika uchaguzi mkuu ujao. Na kama nilivyokuelezea hapo awali katika lugha ya King'enge ni kwamba jana kulikuwa na baadhi ya wale viongozi kutoka mashinani ambao pia vile waliweza kudhamini baadhi ya wale wanaopania sana, wale wanaopendelea sana kujiunga na chama cha ODM, ama vile vile wanaunga mkono chama cha ODM na kuweza kuungana na kuweza kuelekea kule jijini Nairobi, wakielezea bayana kwamba wana matumaini makubwa wakati Raila Odinga atapokuwa akielezea azimio lake la kutaka kuwa rais. Yapo mambo mengi ambayo wameweza kuangazia ya kwamba wangependa yaweze kutiliwa maanani. Baadhi ya masuala hayo ni kuweza kuhakikisha kwamba vijana wanaweza kupata kazi, na pia vile vile hali ya kiuchumi kuweza kuimarika, na pia vile vile kuweza kuhakikisha kwamba kuna kuwa na maendeleo na uwiano katika taifa kama ilivyo katika ile azimio la umoja. Na pia vile vile kuna swala ambalo linaibuka kwa sasa kutoka katika eneo zima hili la pwani. Kipo chama kinajulikana kama Pan African Alliance PA, ambacho kinaongozwa na gavana wa Kilifi Amason Jeffa Kingi kupitia ofisi ya katibu wake, iliweza kueleza bayana kwamba watakuwa wanajiunga katika ili azimio kule katika eneo la Kasarani, akiweza kuelezea bayana kwamba wakiweza kuelezea bayana kwamba manifesto yao wanaamini kwamba itaweza kupanuka ama kuweza kueleweka zaidi iwapo itakuwa katika itakuwa katika ule mustakabali wa kuweza kuonyesha kwamba inaleta watu pamoja, na pia vile vile katika mazingara ambayo yanaleta umoja wa taifa. Na naamini kwamba mazingara hayo ya kuleta umoja wa taifa yanapatikana katika ile azimio la umoja ambalo linasema kwamba kuungana kwa Wakenya wote, kuweza kuhakikisha kwamba kuna kuwa na usawa, na pia vile vile kuweza kuwa na ukuaji wa kiuchumi, vijana kuweza kupata kazi, kina mama kuweza kuhakikisha kwamba shughuli zao za kiuchumi zinakuwa bora zaidi, na pia vile vile masuala ya usalama, na pia vile vile kukua na kuweza kukomaa kisiasa kwa taifa. Raila aliweza kuelezea bayana kwamba iwapo tunataka kuona maendeleo ya kitaifa, ni kwamba maendeleo ya kitaifa yanapatikana pale kunapokuwa na usalama wa kutosha, na pia vile vile uwiano, kwamba hakuwezi kuwa na maendeleo ya kiuchumi iwapo kutakuwa kuna matatizo ama Wakenya wanafarakana. Akaweza kusema kwamba yote haya yataweza kubainika ama kufanyika vyema na kuweza kufikia ule upeo wanaotarajia iwapo kutakuwa na ule uwiano na umoja kwa Wakenya wote. Ni hayo tu tulionayo kwa sasa katika kaunti hii ya Mombasa, lakini tutakuwa tunarudi kwako kuweza kukuelezea zaidi mengi wakati tukizungumza na wananchi waweze kutupatia tu matarajio yao kuhusiana na azimio la umoja kule jiji.
Yale ambayo Raila Odinga atakuwa anasema pale Kasarani. And he has already left his home, headed towards Kasarani, and that means Simon Achola, who's on standby in Kisumu. But before then, Professor Wajakoya, if Gideon Moi today shows up at the Kasarani Stadium in support of Raila Odinga and the Azimio la Umoja, doesn't that mean then the One Kenya Alliance has disentangled?
One Kenya Alliance died long time ago.
It did?
Yes.
When?
Long time, I don't want even to talk about it.
Long time. That's very interesting. It died long time ago.
Yes.
How did it die? Why did it die?
How do you put 5 men into a cage? One of them to be.
All right.
Either Gideon joins Raila or joins me. Because now I'm more popular in lands with the people like us. Let's leave it for those who know what we are doing in the field.
All right. So what options exist then for, if it is disentangled or it died a long time ago? Because each one of them has ambitions. At least for Musalia Mudavadi, we know he has serious ambitions. So is Kalonzo Musyoka. Moses Wetangula has been on and off about his presidential ambitions. But the two gentlemen, that is Musalia Mudavadi and Kalonzo Musyoka, have been serious that they want to vie for presidency. What happens to them? Do they run on the individual parties then?
Well, Musalia is my friend, and we come a long way. But if he runs, and we come from the same backyard, he'll be denting himself because he has run before and he has not shown up, whatever. Secondly, so if Musalia joins Raila as running mate, Ruto will win tomorrow, or I will win day after tomorrow, because Mount Kenya will not want to be left out. So if you put mathematics together, definitely it will be to the advantage of me or Raila or Ruto if none of them ran within our circle, me, Ruto and Raila. Because Ruto is already positioning himself in Mount Kenya. And obviously, our brothers and sisters in Mount Kenya will not want to be left out of the knee. But for a person like me, I'm not even going that direction. I will surprise this country by having somebody who has never even been in existence as my running mate.
Your running mate. Right, O'Brien Kimani joins us on set right about now to give us a little bit of a profile of the former Prime Minister. And O'Brien, you will agree with me, it's quite a rich profile, the profile of the former Premier.
Well, absolutely. I think it's fair to say that, you know, of all the current political leaders, who has a richer political history than Raila Odinga. And today is such a crucial day because it is going to determine what direction his political career will take. It is proper to understand that speculation. But what we know for sure is his past. And that's what I'm about to give you now. Remember, this is a special coverage of Azimio la Umoja convention, which is taking place at the Kasarani.
nimeona. Study. Sawa, weka bisi.
Under remote control. अभी close. अभी ऐसी भी तो.
Raila Odinga the fifth, baba likuja na handshake, vijana tukasare rampage, peace ikakuwa tukaifollow sana kushinda fan Kwani ni kesho?
Mabango ya aspirants, kama una masikio yaweke chini, because everything after today tunataka kuanza sherehe.
Nini bana? Nini? Sina akili idiot.
action speaks louder than words.
All right.
Yeah, and like Prof has said, all the indications are there about the direction that the president intends the country and most of his succession to take. So that I believe he really does not have to be there. Yeah, all that matters most is the actions.
All right. Yeah. I'm asking, so, Professor, because there was a scheduled National Delegates Conference for the Jubilee Party. The president postponed it, obviously in favor of the State of the Nation address that he had in the last week. And as you think about it, the much touted marriage between Jubilee and ODM has been spoken about for the last 2 years, but almost at the point of signing the marriage document, something stalls.
The Jubilee Party died long time ago. Most of the big wigs in Jubilee are now in UDA. And Raila will be wasting his time in coalescing himself with an empty shell. He would just say, welcome, those who want to come in, you can come in.
Are you suggesting that the president is a party leader of a shell party?
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Yes. Yes, he is.
He is the leading a shell party.
A shell party.
So Raila Odinga would be wasting time.
Wasting his time. If I was Raila, and I know Raila is very wise, let people not underestimate that man. And he's, with wisdom, of course, he'll just say, we do this, but in his head, he knows, what is this? Yes.
Wakili Amondi, what stalls when it comes to, because I'm sure you have friends inside the party, ODM. What exactly happens whenever this marriage is almost happening? It appears like the priest never shows up or something happens. The certificate is not available for signing.
No, but I think that in respect of the Jubilee Party, it would be so much in terms of the fact that we know that there has been a substantial shift from Jubilee to UDA.
Yes.
And then, of course, secondly, as it stands now, and given the fact that the president's term is ending, and given our history as a nation, there's a sense in which we have really not developed, strengthened, and inculcated the aspect of developing strong and sustainable political parties. Yeah, so that other than the ODM, I don't think there's any other that would so-called political party that would qualify as a political party as they ought to be, so that then there would be no so much fuss unto what Jubilee is doing, when will the marriage be formalized, because I think even for the persons that matter and who are looking at things in terms of what I said, the future and sustenance of the legacy of the president himself knows that what Raila Odinga may need is just goodwill, and not really that he comes to him with a political party. Though still remember, as a country, we cobble parties 2-3 months to general elections and they win. That is our history. Yeah, so there may be some other party may come even in January. Yeah, and just become now the thing.
Actually, let's talk a little bit about that, Wakili and Professor Wajakoya, because just about last week, there's a bill that has been published. I think the majority leader, Amos Kimunya, is yet to table it in Parliament. But it seeks an amendment to the Political Parties Act, and in a sense introduce a coalition of parties to change, a single identity political party, to make it a coalition of political parties, to recognize a coalition of political parties. And one wonders, is it likely that probably the Azimio la Umoja is going to become a coalition of political parties, which could also woo the Roots party that he belonged to?
Well, my party is not joining anybody.
Okay.
I'm going right throughout to the ballot, and then maybe after the ballot, then the NEC will sit down and try to say what to give a sense of direction. But the issue of coalition is already in the Elections Act, right? And also within the Register of Political Parties Act. So it's not like they're going to. When I formed my party, when I formed a coalition previously with the DIDA, we formed the Trunza, and we deposited our certificate of coalition with the registrar of political parties. Well, things went south because of things that I'm not going to mention right now. But if Azimio comes in to swallow those parties, the party leadership, because I've been in the party systems, because my party sits on the political parties liaison committee, so I've been very much aware of what goes on. Yeah, there are some political parties with political leadership that are ready to attract people like the former prime minister. They want to go on his handicoat, but people like us who have stood firm, who have said no, we shall go all the way to the debe, and then after that let Kenyans decide, because we are not representing the whole image of Kenya. We are representing the image of undecided voters who do not want to go that direction again.
That particular piece of legislation that is yet to be tabled in Parliament actually wants to recognize a coalition party instead of what we say a political party, a coalition party. And we've seen the formation of new parties, Upia. There are others still being formed even in Mount Kenya region. PNU also appears to be gravitating towards Raila Odinga. Are we going to see Azimio force into a big national movement?
Yeah, that could be a possibility, and I think that there has been some sort of lacuna in the law. And this could even be part of the explanation into the split that occurred in the initial NASA coalition. I remember I mentioned the question of the sharing of the political parties' funds, which of course personally I felt was not handled properly so by ODM, because ordinarily such agreements are crafted in good faith. But I would really want to see a scenario where it's clearly captured in the law how funds that are attributed to political parties or coalitions are shared, and based on what. Because you will realize, like in the last election, NASA for example, there may have been the ODM party, I want to believe, may have had quite a number of members of parliament from within Nairobi. But of course there is a sense in which each of the coalition partners or the presidential aspirants, bearing in mind the regional nature of our country, played in ensuring that this particular party actually wins these particular slots. So that subsequent to the election, the question would be, how would that fund be shared? Because again, you realize that for us to build a stable democracy, for us to create a culture of strong political parties, so that we avoid this situation after every election, parties fall, and then these parties need to be funded, so that it should be that even if we come under the banner of Azimio la Umoja, what would be the basis of sharing political party funds, so that in the end of the day we can rest assured that, as is it called Amazon Kingi, your party will also get some share in this. If Prof's party comes in, he is also given some share based on his contribution. There ought to be that particular framework. I think that's one major lacuna that law really needs to address, to avoid fall. Because if that was not the case, I want to honestly believe that NASA would still be intact. According to me, the split in NASA was basically because when everything came in the names of the majority, the political party that had the lion's share, then there's a sense in which the rest felt that they were ignored. So I think that's one thing that law really needs to address. And
I'm sure that has been addressed in the legislation proposed by Amos Kimonya. But I'm sitting here wondering, Professor, as a presidential candidate, because there's those who aver that it will be very difficult to win an election in this country, and I think that has been seen from the year 2013, that it will be very impossible unless you form yourself under a coalition. It is impossible to win a presidential election.
Well, those are just assumptions. What's very important is, can you reach out, talk to the electorate, and can the electorate feel you? Can they trust in what you are telling them? But if you are going to steal to give, without disclosing the source of your finances like it has been, then definitely that's the route to follow. And as my learned colleague has said here, the issue of party funding should not only just be coalesced on whichever party gets the bigger share, then it can share with the smaller parties. Kenya is the only country in the whole world which has discriminatory policy on funding of political parties. They expect us to come up with returns, yearly returns, to tell the registrar of political parties and the controller of the budget, that the controller, the auditor general, on how we have used the funds in the party, and to tell them where we got the funds. Whereas the bigger parties are funded, us, like myself, have had to go to my own pocket, and trust me, I've spent almost 46 million on my party from the time it was incepted in 2010 when we formed our party. So it has just been draining me, and then somebody wants me to go and account for the money he has not given me. That kind of lunacy is what has been created by the political parties themselves. Jubilee and ODM, members of parliament, sitting in parliament to craft laws favorable to them. God bless them.
That's about lunacy. God blessing them. Those are live pictures from Kasarani International Stadium, the venue of the Azimio la Umoja convention, the climax rather. The former Prime Minister has made rounds around the country, has been to Mount Kenya, has been to lower eastern, upper eastern, western part of Kenya, and I think the last rallies were around areas of Mount Elgon, as well as Trans Nzoia, which is also on those ends, and the culmination is today. In studio, I have Professor Wajakoya and Wakili Ken Amondi to analyze and dissect this announcement being made here. We'll go to Kasarani just a bit, but of course when we come back, of course we have to address the question of the running mate for Raila Odinga. Now that, you know, Musalia Mudavadi is out of the picture, presumably, Kalonzo Musyoka too, Moses Wetangula, who will be the running mate? There has been a proposal that as you ascend the mountain, Peter Kennedy is probably the most viable running mate. There's those who propose Peter Munya. There are others who propose Martha Wangari Karua. We'll be, you know, dissecting all those options right here. It's a full table. But for now, we head over to Kasarani and listen in a bit.
Shikilia kidogo Wakwito. Mbaito Mwaseo inge. Naomba hivi maafisa wa usalama, ile entrance ya wasanii ifungwe. Tuelekee juu, tuko na nafasi ya kutosha pale juu. Tafadhalini sana, ninawaomba. Hiyo gate ifungwe ili watu waweze kwenda juu. Iko nafasi ya kutosha, iko soda ya kutosha, iko wifi ya kutosha. Na ukiketi pale juu unaondolewa kwa fuliza mara moja. Tuendelee. DJ.
Mashimone na manie,